Billionaire couple poured champagne on black CEO. Moments later, their family lost $5.2. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The champagne hit her skin before the laughter did. A cold stream of gold running down her cheek, soaking into white silk. Every crystal in the ballroom froze. Get out of here, you ape. The voice didn't tremble, it sliced. Victoria Hale, wife of billionaire Richard Hale, stood over the table, bottle tilted, smirking as if she'd just erased a stain. Her diamond bracelet caught the chandelier light like applause. Gasps fluttered through the crowd, sharp, embarrassed, but no one moved. The woman sitting beneath the spill didn't shout, didn't flinch. Amara Lewis, 34, skin like polished mahogany, eyes that didn't blink even when humiliated. She reached for a napkin, wiped her face, and calmly placed it beside her untouched glass. Across the table, a man whispered, "Who invited her?" Another chuckled nervously, probably catering. Phones rose quietly, screens glowing like judgment. Victoria turned to her husband, voice sweet and venomous. "Richard, I told you these charity dinners need tighter security. Anyone can sneak in these days." He chuckled, half for her, half for the audience watching him perform privilege. "Lesson 1, he said, lifting his glass. "Money has manners." The laughter that followed wasn't loud, it was worse. It was polite, controlled, practiced, the kind that says we've seen this before and we'll see it again, but not tonight. Amara lifted her phone, the one that had been resting silently on the white linen beside her plate. No tremor in her hand, no quiver in her voice, just precision. Her thumb hovered over the screen for 1 second, then she pressed call. A hush swept across the table. Even the violinist stopped mid-note. "Yes," she said softly into the receiver. "It's me." Pause. "Cancel the Hale merger. Effective immediately." Victoria blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. Richard frowned, confused, still smiling for the room. "What merger?" someone asked. Amara looked up, finally meeting their eyes, a calm storm. "You'll read about it in the morning," she said, voice steady, elegant, unhurried. Then she added, almost to herself, "Actions have dividends too." The words hung in the air, heavy, deliberate, prophetic. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Amara. Because 5 minutes from this moment, the Hale family's empire, the houses, the headlines, the halo would begin to crack from the inside. And all it took was one woman who refused to raise her voice. Hours earlier, before the champagne, before the whispers, the ballroom had been all light and laughter. Golden curtains draped over marble walls. A 6-figure string quartet tuning under chandeliers that burned like captured suns. The Hale Foundation's annual charity gala, an event where wealth dressed up as virtue. Amara Lewis had arrived alone. No entourage, no designer clutch, just a white gown that fell like silence, and a simple silver pin tucked in her hair, her mother's. People noticed her, but only the way they notice waitstaff who walk too gracefully. The maitre d' had offered to escort her to the back kitchen. She smiled, politely declined, and walked toward the main table. Each step soft, measured, as if she were testing the floor's moral balance. Her name wasn't on the public seating chart. That was intentional. A quiet experiment, a mirror held up to the room. The truth was, Amara could have bought every chandelier in that ballroom 10 times over. Her company, Aurea Capital, had just closed its $3 billion acquisition in renewable infrastructure. And yet, here she was, invisible under the weight of her own restraint. She sat near the center table, surrounded by suits and sequins, where Richard and Victoria Hale were already basking in their orbit of attention. Victoria in emerald silk, laughing too loud, Richard in tailored black, nodding at investors who nodded back harder. They didn't see Amara. Not yet. Can I get you something? A waiter asked her kindly. Amara smiled. A glass of still water, please. The young man nodded, but before he could move, Victoria's voice pierced through the music. Oh, perfect timing. Could you refill my champagne instead? He hesitated, tray shaking between two worlds, then turned to do as told. Amara didn't take it personally. She'd lived this rhythm before. At 21, her scholarship dinner at Yale. At 28, the boardroom where they assumed she was the assistant. At 30, when investors mistook her chief of staff for the CEO and asked her to fetch coffee, she didn't scream then either. She learned, observed, waited. She'd come to this gala not to celebrate the Hale family but to test them, because tomorrow, they were scheduled to sign a $5.2 billion partnership deal with Aurea Capital, a deal that could change the landscape of energy investment across 3 continents. Or end it. So, when the maitre d' forgot her name, when Richard ignored her greeting, when Victoria's eyes narrowed with that quiet disbelief that said you don't belong here, Amara just smiled. It wasn't patience. It was precision. She glanced at her reflection in the polished champagne flute, unbothered, composed. Every insult tonight would be recorded, documented, stored not for revenge, but for clarity. Because dignity, to her, wasn't something you demanded. It was something you displayed, especially when no one offered it back. From a distance, Clara, her discreet aide seated near the catering staff, watched closely, phone ready, waiting for the signal that would never come until it mattered most. And as the orchestra swelled and the toasts began, Amara lifted her own glass quietly, not to the hosts, but to the truth that would soon rewrite every fortune in the room. By the time dessert was served, the room had changed temperature. Not the air, the energy. You could feel it, thick as perfume and twice as suffocating. Victoria Hale had begun her favorite sport, people-watching, as judgment. Every time Amara's quiet poise caught another guest's attention, Victoria's smile tightened like silk stretched too far. She leaned toward her husband, whispering behind her glass. She's been sitting there for over an hour, alone. No invite, no title card. Richard didn't look up from his phone. Then she's lucky we haven't asked security yet. At the same moment, a waiter approached Amara's table with a refill. But before he could pour, Victoria's hand shot out, blocking him. No more champagne for her. She's not on our guest list. Her words carried, sharp enough for half the table to hear. A few heads turned, some smirking, others pretending not to. Amara looked up calm, unbothered. Still water is fine, she said softly. The waiter hesitated, caught in the crossfire of wealth and conscience. Of course, ma'am. He poured quickly and retreated, eyes lowered. From across the table, a banker with too much ego and not enough empathy laughed into his napkin. You know, I've seen her before, he said to no one in particular. She modeled for some diversity campaign last year, I think. Laughter followed the brittle kind that hides cowardice. Richard smirked. Well, if she's here for attention, she's got it. Victoria tilted her head, studying Amara like a misplaced object. Some people will do anything to feel seen. Amara didn't respond. She simply folded her napkin, set it neatly beside her plate, and reached for her phone, but not to record, not to post. Her screen glowed faintly. A single notification. Aurea merger. Draft contract pending signature. The irony almost made her smile. At the far end of the room, Clara noticed the shift, the glances, the whispers, the mockery dressed as humor. She whispered into her earpiece. They've started, ma'am. Do you want me to step in? Amara's response was steady. Not yet. Let them reveal themselves fully. And reveal they did. When the orchestra paused between songs, Victoria decided to raise her glass, a toast she hadn't been asked to give. To good breeding, she announced, her voice echoing. And to knowing where you belong. Applause followed, hesitant, confused. Amara's gaze lifted, meeting hers across the table. The silence between them was louder than the music that resumed seconds later. Ethan Wu, the young tech investor seated 2 tables away, felt his stomach twist. He recognized Amara instantly from Forbes's top 50 visionaries under 40. He whispered to his companion, That's Amara Lewis, the woman funding Hale's next project. His friend blinked. You're kidding. Not even close. But the crowd didn't know. They saw only what they wanted to see. A black woman in a white dress, out of place in a room built on illusion. Victoria leaned closer again, her tones syrupy and cruel. Next time, darling, choose an event where you blend in. Richard chuckled. Or at least learn to curtsy. The laughter that followed wasn't loud this time. It was uneasy. Because even those who joined in could sense something still, coiled, deliberate sitting right across from them. Amara placed her phone flat on the table, screen down, and smiled politely. Enjoy your evening, she said. Her voice was velvet, but beneath it, steel was forming. No one at that table knew they were 5 minutes away from the sound of an empire cracking. Tot, Viet Tiep Voitus 600 Token Cho. Part 4. ChatGPT Kuthe Makloi. OpenAI K. The moment felt like theater, except no one knew the curtain had already risen. Across the ballroom, a subtle red light blinked to life on a phone camera. Ethan Wu had hit record, not because he wanted drama, but because something about the scene was wrong. Too familiar, too cruel. He zoomed in, as Victoria Hale, draped in emerald silk and arrogance, leaned over Amara's shoulder and whispered something that made the surrounding laughter stop. Ethan couldn't hear the words, but he saw Amara's face, the kind of calm that comes right before thunder. A murmur swept the nearby tables. Someone whispered, "Is she really recording this?" Another voice replied, "Let her. Maybe it's time people saw how these events actually look." Clara, Amara's discreet aide, stood near the back disguised as an event coordinator. Her earpiece crackled. "Ma'am," she whispered softly, "they're filming. Do you want me to step in?" Amara's voice came back, low and certain. "No, let the truth have witnesses." At table 12, a young journalist named Maya Delacroix recognized the name Amara Lewis on a gala brochure tucked under a centerpiece. Her eyes widened. "Wait," she said to the man beside her. "She's the CEO of Aurea Capital. The one behind the Hale merger. The same merger they bragged about during the toast?" he replied. "Exactly. And they're humiliating her in public. In fraud." Maya lifted her phone too, not to post to archive. For proof. For history. Meanwhile, Victoria's laughter grew shriller, desperate to reclaim control. "Oh, come now. Everyone's so sensitive these days," she said, pretending it was a joke. Richard nodded, half drunk, half proud. She should be honored we even noticed her. The air thickened, every fork lowered, every conversation stalled. It was as if the entire ballroom was holding its breath, unsure which side of decency it stood on. And then came the small voice that cracked the silence. A waiter barely 20, shaking, heart-pounding, spoke up. "Excuse me, Mrs. Hale," he said, "but her name's on the list." The room turned. Victoria froze. "What did you say?" "Her name," he repeated, stronger this time. "Amara Lewis. She's on the priority seating chart. The one marked executive partner." Gasps. A few heads whipped around. Ethan's camera caught every expression: shock, shame, disbelief. Victoria's cheeks flushed crimson. "You must be mistaken." The waiter swallowed hard. "No, ma'am. I double-checked. It's there." Richard's smirk faltered. For a second, the certainty in his voice vanished. He turned to Amara. "Who exactly are you?" Amara didn't answer. She just looked at him, not with anger, but with something worse. Understanding. Clara stepped closer now, just enough for her voice to reach Amara's earpiece. "They're unraveling. Do I call protocol?" "Not yet," Amara said. "The storm isn't loud enough." Ethan kept filming, breath shallow. He'd started out recording for curiosity. Now it felt like duty. Maya whispered to him, "This is history." Ethan nodded. His eyes locked on Amara. "No," he said quietly. "This is justice waiting for its cue." End quote. And somewhere between the chandeliers and the cell phones, the power in the room began to tilt almost imperceptibly away from the Hales and toward the woman they had just tried to humiliate. They didn't know it yet, but witnesses were multiplying. And every lens, every whisper, Every recording had already become part of the evidence that would dismantle an empire before dessert was cleared. The orchestra struck a soft note, violins like glass trembling over candlelight, just as Victoria Hale decided to end her own grace. She lifted her half-empty bottle and leaned in close, voice dripping champagne and venom. "Let me give you a little advice," she murmured, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "Know your place before someone reminds you where it is." Then, as if to prove her point, she tilted the bottle and let the last stream of gold splash down Amara's shoulder. The gasp that followed wasn't just sound. It was air being stolen from the room. Amara didn't move. The liquid slid down her collarbone, glittering under the chandelier like molten disrespect. Her eyes stayed fixed on the bottle, on the trembling reflection of Victoria's hand. Then she exhaled slow, deliberate, and whispered, "You really shouldn't have done that." Victoria laughed, brittle, unsure. "Oh, relax, sweetheart. It's just a little joke." End quote. "No," Amara replied. "It's history repeating itself." And suddenly she was 17 again, a scholarship student at a private boarding school in Connecticut. Winter formal. White lace dress borrowed from a church friend. She'd been the only black girl in the room. When her date arrived late, a chaperone had mistaken her for a caterer and told her to put the tray down. She remembered standing in that same posture, chin lifted, eyes wet but unbroken, as the laughter filled the hall. That night, she'd promised herself, "Next time, I'll own the room that laughs at me." Now, 20 years later, the echo of that vow hummed in her veins. Richard Hale barked at the nearest waiter, "Get security, this woman's causing a scene." But the waiter hesitated. Everyone did. Because no one could quite tell who the scene really belonged to anymore. From across the ballroom, Ethan's phone caught it all, the drips of champagne, the hush, the small army of witnesses who suddenly stopped pretending they didn't see. Maya whispered, "They just destroyed themselves." Amara rose slowly. The chair's soft scrape against marble sounded like a gavel. She reached into her clutch, not for a tissue, but for her phone. The screen lit her face in cold light. "Clara," she said evenly, "initiate internal audit protocol. Every Hale account linked to the merger." "Understood," came the reply. "And Clara." Amara's tone sharpened like a blade drawn halfway from its sheath. "Mark this moment. Timestamp it." Victoria folded her arms, trying to regain composure. "What are you doing? Calling your lawyer?" Amara met her eyes, calm as ice. "No, calling the future." The band stopped playing entirely now. Guests whispered, their voices colliding into a low murmur that felt almost like thunder in the making. Richard's phone vibrated on the table. He glanced down one new email. "Aurea Capital withdrawal notice urgent." He blinked, then looked up at Amara, confusion starting to shade into fear. "What did you just do?" "Nothing loud," she said. "Just corrected a $1 billion mistake." Every camera in the room seemed to tilt toward her. The hush was absolute, the kind of silence that comes right before a collapse. Amara's final words cut through it, clean and fatal. "You poured champagne on a woman who already owned your tomorrow." Then she set her phone down on the linen, its screen glowing with a single line of text. Protocol 7. Activated. The night had crossed its breaking point. And by morning, so would the Hale dynasty. No one moved at first. It was the kind of stillness that comes when a fault line opens beneath fine china, and tuxedos silent, invisible, but final. Victoria still clutched the bottle, knuckles white around its neck, as if holding on to her last claim to control. Richard stood behind her, half drunk, half stunned, trying to piece together what had just shifted in the room. He broke the silence first. "You think you can threaten me at my own event?" His voice cracked halfway through the sentence. "You're finished here, miss, whatever your name is." Amara turned to face him fully. The lights caught her wet shoulder, her calm expression, the faint reflection of a woman who had already outgrown the room she stood in. "My name," she said, her voice smooth as polished stone, "is on every one of your contracts." A murmur rippled through the guests. A few people glanced at their phones, searching the headlines. Someone whispered, "Aurea Capital, she's the CEO." Richard's jaw tightened. "That's impossible. The merger isn't finalized. Amara's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. It was. Until 30 seconds ago. She held up her phone, the glow of the screen reflecting in her eyes. Effective immediately, Aurea Capital withdraws from all Hale partnerships. Victoria scoffed, her laughter high-pitched and fragile. You can't just cancel $5 billion with a phone call. Amara smiled faintly. You'd be surprised what power sounds like when it doesn't need to shout. Clara's voice came softly through the phone speaker. Protocol confirmed, ma'am. Notifications have reached the board. Trading systems are responding. The word trading hit Richard like a slap. He fumbled for his phone, the screen lighting up with a cascade of alerts, red numbers, news pings, urgent flags. His hand trembled. What is this? He muttered. Reality, Amara said. Around them, the ballroom had become a stage of uneasy spectators. Some guests quietly lowered their glasses. Others began to film again, sensing that history, or at least humiliation, was unfolding live. The orchestra stood frozen, bows midair. A photographer, too stunned to stop himself, captured the moment the billionaire couple realized they were no longer the center of their own narrative. Amara took a step forward, not aggressive, just enough to close the distance. You wanted to teach me a lesson about manners, she said quietly. Consider this one about consequences. Novri 7. Victoria's lips parted, searching for a retort, but no sound came. The only thing that answered her was the vibration of Richard's phone, another alert. His company's stock had dropped 8% in less than 4 minutes. Across the room, Ethan whispered to Maya, "It's happening. She's dismantling them right here." Maya whispered back, "She's not yelling, she's executing." Amara glanced toward the waiter who had spoken up earlier. He looked terrified, unsure if he should disappear or bow. She gave him a small nod gratitude without words. Then she turned back to the Hales. "This isn't revenge," she said. "It's a reckoning." Her phone buzzed once more. Clara's voice, calm and efficient. "Confirmation complete. All Hale accounts are frozen pending review." Amara pressed the screen to mute, eyes never leaving Victoria's. "You said I should know my place," she whispered. "Turns out, it's above yours." End quote. And with that, she placed the phone on the table beside the half-empty bottle, the glowing screen reflecting a single message. Hale merger terminated. Assets recalled. The ballroom was silent again, but this time, it was awe, not fear. The turn had come, and the empire that once mocked her had just been signed out of its own future. It wasn't just the stock alerts anymore. It was the silence, the heavy, cinematic kind that falls right before truth walks in. Richard Hale's phone slipped from his hand, clattering onto the marble. Victoria froze, eyes darting around the ballroom, searching for a way out that didn't exist. Her laugh from earlier, that bright, cruel symphony, was gone now, replaced by a tremor she couldn't hide. Amara stood tall, water and champagne dripping from her shoulders like liquid armor. No raised voice, no fury, only clarity. "You asked who I am," she began. "I'm the reason this event even exists." The words didn't roar. They landed, each syllable deliberate, like stones placed on a grave. She stepped forward, the room parting instinctively. Even the security guards, halfway through deciding who they should protect, stopped cold. "I am Amara Lewis, founder and CEO of Aurea Capital, the company that funded Hale Industries' global expansion. The company your family just publicly insulted." Gasps scattered like falling glass. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another, "That's her, the woman from Forbes." Victoria's lips trembled. "You're lying." Amara tilted her head. "You can confirm it on your husband's phone unless he's already locked out of his accounts." Richard's face was pale now, his voice a low growl. "You can't do this. We have contracts, boards, lawyers. And I have receipts," Amara replied, tapping her screen. "Every word you said tonight was recorded. Every witness here, every camera saw it." She turned toward the crowd. "Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, what does a billion-dollar empire look like when it loses its soul?" Ethan's camera caught the moment. The question wasn't meant for Richard, it was meant for the world. Maya whispered, almost reverently, "She's not just exposing them, She's teaching everyone else what power sounds like. Dan. Victoria tried to steady herself, straightening her posture, forcing her voice to sound confident. You're making a scene. Amara smiled faintly. No, Mrs. Hale, you made the scene. I'm just rewriting the script. A murmur of approval rippled through the audience. It wasn't applause yet, but it was awakening. Then came the final cut, the line that would travel the internet before dawn. Amara leaned forward, her tone soft, almost kind. You poured champagne on a black woman in a company she owns, and in doing so, you just washed away your entire fortune. Silence. Every camera caught it. The light refracted off the tears forming in Victoria's eyes. Richard's expression collapsed into something between disbelief and dread. A waiter's tray slipped and clanged onto the floor, breaking the trance, and that was all it took. Phones rose again. Voices whispered. Someone said, "Is this live?" Someone else murmured, "It's history." Amara turned her phone so the screen faced them. The message from Aria Capital's board glowed bright and brutal. Merger terminated. Assets recalled. Public statement pending. She placed the phone down gently, as if laying a crown on a velvet pillow. This is what you bought with arrogance, she said. A lesson in valuation, not of money but of character. The cameras flashed like lightning. Victoria stumbled back, eyes wide. You'll regret this, she hissed. Amara met her gaze with calm precision. Regret is for those who didn't earn their ending. And with that, she turned away, the crowd parting once more, no longer avoiding her, but clearing her path. Behind her, the Hale name began to fracture in real time. The empire that once laughed had just been reduced to silence, not by fury, but by fact. It was over, and the world had seen it. Tot. Via Tiep Voitu 600 Token Cho Part 8. Chat GPT Kute Makloi. OpenAI Kong Sudung Du Liu. It began with one phone vibrating, then another, and another. A chorus of alerts rising beneath chandeliers that no longer gleamed with elegance but with exposure. On the Hale family's own projector screen, the charity ticker froze mid-update. The sponsor's name, Hale Industries, blinked twice, then vanished, replaced by a breaking news banner. Aria Capital withdraws $5, 2B merger funding. Hale stocks in freefall. The crowd gasped. Some stood, some filmed. Richard lunged for the nearest laptop a staffer was holding, muttering, "That's impossible. Refresh the feed." But the numbers didn't lie. Hale Industries had dropped 19% in under 8 minutes. 19% and falling. Victoria's fingers trembled on the rim of her glass. The last of the champagne inside fizzed out, soundless, flat. She looked around at faces that only hours ago had adored her, envied her, followed her every word. Now, they stared as if watching a slow-motion car crash. "Turn the screens off," she shouted, voice cracking under the weight of her own panic. No one moved. The PR director pretended not to hear. The investors turned toward Amara, instinctively realigning their loyalty like compass needles finding true north. Amara didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply stood there, calm as an anchor in a storm of noise and privilege collapsing around her. "You were right, Richard," she said softly. "Money does have manners. It just decided to leave your table." The line hit harder than any headline. Ethan's camera caught it. Maya whispered, "That's the clip the world will remember." Richard straightened, trying to summon the voice that once commanded boardrooms. "You can't destroy us like this," he said, almost pleading. "There are families, employees, and every one of them will be taken care of." Amara cut in, measured and precise, "by people who actually respect them." Clara's voice hummed quietly through her earpiece. "Protocol complete. Media outlets already running the statement. You're trending globally under number the poor." That word poor spread through the ballroom like a cold wind. People glanced at Victoria's empty bottle, still dangling from her hand. She followed their stares, realized what they saw, and dropped it. It shattered across marble, a perfect metaphor in shards. "You'll regret this," she shouted again, voice shrill now, echoing off chandeliers. "You think this makes you powerful?" Amara turned, eyes steady, the faintest glint of empathy breaking through the frost. No, she said quietly. It makes me free. Cameras clicked. Someone clapped once, then twice, slow, deliberate. Then, more joined in, the applause spreading through the hall like a rising tide. Not loud or mocking, but resolute, a verdict. Richard tried to speak, but his voice drowned beneath the rhythm of hands meeting truth. He slumped into his chair, staring at the phone that had once been his scepter. Its screen still glowed. Market cap, -$4. 8B, -$5. 0B, -$5. 2B. Victoria backed away, mascara streaking, whispering, "This can't be happening. Not to us." Amara faced her one last time. "It's not happening to you," she said. "It's happening because of you." A single flash went off, blinding for half a second. That photograph, champagne stains on a billion-dollar gown, arrogance turned to ash, and the black CEO standing calm amid ruin would circle the world before dawn. As the applause faded, Amara picked up her phone, tapped once, and said, "Clara, initiate compensation for every Hale employee affected by the collapse. We'll rebuild what they broke without their name on it." "Confirmed," Clara replied. Amara took one last look around the ballroom. The empire had fallen in real time. No lawsuit, no scandal, just consequence. And she had done it without ever raising her voice. When she turned to leave, the crowd parted again, not out of fear this time, but out of respect. The floor beneath her shimmered with the remnants of spilled champagne, glowing like a golden trail of everything she'd overcome. The ballroom, once a temple of luxury and applause, now sounded like aftermath, the hum of whispers, the soft click of cameras, the silence of realization. Amara didn't walk out in triumph. She moved with calm, measured grace, every step echoing over marble like punctuation to a story that had rewritten itself. People parted instinctively, not because she demanded it, but because her composure commanded space. Behind her, Richard sat slumped in disbelief, his phone still glowing with red tickers. Victoria, her once perfect curls undone, stared at the floor where champagne shimmered around her heels like guilt made visible. The scent of wine and panic hung thick in the air. Amara reached the center of the room, the same spot where Victoria had poured humiliation down her back just minutes earlier. She turned, and with the same serenity that had unnerved them all night, she spoke. "You thought silence meant submission. You thought calm meant weakness. But power isn't volume, it's precision." Her voice carried, not loud, but absolute. Even the chandeliers seemed to hold their light steadier, as if to listen. She looked around at the waiters who had flinched, the guests who had looked away, the young journalist still holding her phone with shaking hands. "What happened here tonight isn't just about one insult or one family losing money," she said. "It's about what happens when people stop mistaking arrogance for authority." Maya lowered her camera slowly, tears in her eyes. Ethan stood frozen, realizing he had captured something far greater than scandal. He had filmed the moment dignity became revolutionary. Amara continued, voice steady. "I didn't come here to be seen. I came here to see who you really were. And tonight, the truth showed up for everyone to witness." There was no applause yet, no movement, just the quiet reckoning of people watching a new kind of power unfold, one that didn't need validation, only vision. She paused, then smiled faintly, as if addressing something beyond the room itself. "For years, I've been told to be patient, to be graceful, to be silent. Tonight, I learned that silence isn't peace, it's permission, and I don't give it any more." The crowd held its breath. Someone whispered, "She's rewriting history right here." Clara's voice came softly through the earpiece. "Ma'am, global news outlets have picked it up. The poor is #1 worldwide. The board wants to issue a statement, but they're asking if you'd like to speak first." Amara looked toward the double doors that led out to the waiting night. Beyond them, a sea of reporters and flashing lights were already gathering. She exhaled, slow, certain. "No press release," she said. "They've already seen enough. Let the image speak." Then she turned back to the crowd, her final words measured like a closing chapter. "You don't fight prejudice by shouting over it. You end it by standing taller than it can reach." And with that, She walked toward the exit, every camera following, every whisper trailing behind her like a hymn. Outside, the air was cool, honest. Her car waited, sleek and black beneath the glow of streetlights. As she stepped inside, Clara's voice came again, softer this time. It's done. The Hale Empire has filed emergency suspension. Their investors are moving to your side. Amara looked out the window at the glittering skyline, a city that had once ignored her, now lighting her path home. Let them rebuild, she murmured, just not on the backs of others this time. Her driver asked quietly, "Straight to headquarters, ma'am?" "No," she said, "to Southbridge Academy. There's a scholarship fund that needs doubling." The car eased forward, its reflection sliding past gold-lit storefronts, still buzzing with the breaking story. And somewhere in the city below, a teenage girl scrolled through her phone, watching Amara's clip in stunned silence the moment a drenched, unbroken woman said the words, "You poured champagne on the woman who owns your future." She hit replay, then replay again. In that instant, a new belief began to spread, that dignity doesn't shout, it shifts worlds. And as Amara's car disappeared into the night, the screen behind her last words glowed across millions of devices. "I didn't raise my voice, I raised the standard,"